basketball season heads to the next level, the state tournament. It's the last level. Our own Matt Manley joins me as we take a look at the boys tournament, which starts this week and hopefully for some teams will run well into the middle of March. And Matt, I do have to start and ask you quickly, just a follow-up on the Shore Conference Tournament Championship game and Ranny's dominance of Modern Day Prep. And was it a case that night, Ranny that good, Modern Day Prep that bad, or is it usually is a little of both?
Yeah, you hit it. It's both, because Ranny, I think, played a 32-minute defensive game that maybe we hadn't seen during the tournament. They would have stretches where they could kind of get their legs and maybe sit in the zone and rest and then hit another 12-0, 16-2 run against a team. But against Modern Day, that was the finish line, and they said we're playing 32 minutes of this and we're not letting up. They got a little sloppy with the turnovers, but defensively they were great for 32 minutes. And Modern Day, bad shooting day. They had a good one the day before, or the round before, and a couple so-so ones in the rounds previous, and they just couldn't really find it in the at Monmouth that day, and they ended up getting out of hand.
It was a more complete Ranny effort, I think, than some might have expected. A lot of people went there that night. It was sold out. They were looking for the high-flying acrobatics. They didn't get any of that. What they got was a team that, as a group, I thought, and you hit it, I thought defensively, they played shutdown defense from the opening tip.
It was a completely different team than the one that played against CBA. CBA, they had 12 dunks. They were, on some possessions, it was almost like, all right, Stephen Bronstein just drove past us for a layup. We're coming back down and scoring, and it was going to the rim all day. Against Modern Day, there was no let up on defense. They ran pretty deliberate offensive sets. They hit some shots. Scotty Lewis came out on fire. Amadou Sarner played a great, just a great complete game. And it was just, they kind of showed you the different faces that they can be, which is always a great sign going into any tournament, that you can win a couple different ways, which it should bode well for them going forward.
And as we go forward, unlike the girls' side where we expect to have a team or maybe two in the TOC just about every year, it's a little bit different on the boys' side. So I'll start by saying, is Ranny the Shore's best hope to go deep into the state tournament?
Well, they're the Shore's best hope to win the whole thing, obviously, because they're in a section, or they're in a group, non-public B, that has the best teams in the state on the whole, with the exception of a couple from non-public A and maybe Linden and Newark Eastside. You're pulling that champion out of non-public B, and Ranny, while they're not the favorite in B, they're good enough to beat the best teams in B.
Gotcha.
It didn't look great when they lost to Roselle Catholic by 25, but Scotty Lewis didn't play, Alex Klatsky didn't play, and Brian Antoine and Xavier Akawobo didn't have their greatest games that day. So I think Ranny should feel fine going up against RC or Hudson Catholic if it's either one of those. Again, I think those teams with the seniors they have would be favored over Ranny, but Ranny's good enough to beat them. So if you're asking which Shore team can actually win the whole thing, it's obvious Ranny's the only one that really has a shot. If you're asking which team has the chance to go into the TOC, which team has the best, you could make the case for Ranny, you could make the case for Rumson. They didn't look great against Modern Day, obviously, in the semifinals for anybody who made that trip to go watch them play against Modern Day, but they've had a good year, they're deep, they're versatile, and they can get going with their shot on some days, and if they do that on the right day, they could be trouble for a Camden who's almost an automatic to go to that state final. But Rumson has the horses to deal with them this year that a lot of Shore teams haven't had in the past, so they could be a team. And of course Point Beach at a Group 1 is always a threat. There's no real dominant team in Group 1 this year. Burlington City's the 1 seed in that section. Point Beach lost to them by 5 last year, so you give Point Beach a pretty good chance to beat them. And there's no powerhouse in South Jersey this year. Point Beach could lose to one of those teams, but they're good enough to go to Toms River for that Group 1 semi and win and get to Rutgers. And once they're there, they're in play for a TOC. So those three, I would say, are probably the most likely to end up at the TOC, and Randy's the only one that's really got a shot to win it.
Interesting. It's likely Randy will play Modern Day Prep again. A fourth time would be this coming Saturday in the bracket you just talked about. And it was funny, when I interviewed Taj Holton after the game, the Randy coach after the game Saturday, and I did that, how hard it is to beat the same team 3 times. Then I said the 4th time, he said, well, honestly, it's more on them to find a way to beat us than us to beat them a 4th time, and I think that's accurate.
I actually agree with that, because I kind of got the sense that, like, and the way that Randy won that game on Saturday night, I have a hard time believing like Modern Day is just gonna say, well, we can't beat them, we're not gonna show up. They'll put up a fight. But I kind of got the sense that, like, if Randy won that game Saturday, then the next Saturday would be kind of a wipeout too, because it's just hard. Like, at that point, they kind of know that they have the formula. Yeah. I do think Mater Dei is gonna show a little pride on that Saturday game, assuming both teams get there. Yep. But yeah, I got the sense that, like, you take a 4-game stretch with those teams, Mater Dei can win one of them, but you got to remember they had a shot to win the one at Mater Dei, and they didn't put it away, and that might have been their chance. Given the talent on either side, that might have been their chance to beat them. But we'll see. Again, they're a prideful team. They're well coached. They had a bad day on Saturday, and I expect them to come out and play a lot harder, assuming both teams can get to that point, which I think most people expect they will.
All right, so you gave us the 3 teams that maybe with all the chips falling right could make it even an appearance in the TOC. But what about in this section? We start with the state sectionals. Who besides those has a good chance to not only win, if not win a sectional, get to a final?
Well, to me, looking at the 10 sections that have a short team in them, I think 9 of them have a real chance. South Jersey 3 is the one that looks a little bit of a long shot. You have Pinelands is hosting their first state title game as a number 5 seed, and they've been great at home all year, undefeated. So maybe they could win a game. But you have Timber Creek in that section. You have Winslow as an 11 seed. They're 7-17, and they play one of the better schedules you'll find. So I think they're kind of a sleeper there. But you have Pinelands, Toms River East in that section, and to me, like, those teams, maybe they can win a game. Lacey's got to go against Timber Creek in the first round. So maybe those teams win a game, and maybe even Pinelands wins 2, but Timber Creek has been kind of that anointed team all year there, so that's probably the one that doesn't happen. Every other section's in play. You got Middletown North as a 10 seed, probably flying under the radar a little bit, but Rahway and Chatham are the top 2 seeds in that section, and they're favored, but Middletown North is showing you they can go toe-to-toe with some really good teams, and I would put those teams in that category of teams that Middletown North can play with. Central Jersey 4, it's wide open. Colts Neck hasn't played great recently, but they're the number 1 seed. They'll have a home game as long as they're around. Marlboro is a dangerous number 8. Middletown South's played pretty well. And there's not really that team. We saw Hunterdon Central at the Toms River Showcase. Good team, not overly imposing.
Right.
So Group 4 I would say that's in play, even if there's not an obvious team. We mentioned CJ2 with not only Rumson but Manasquan as the 2 seed. Manasquan's going to have a very hard second round game against either Lincoln or Matawan. Lincoln is very tough. They got a big front line, an athletic team. Matawan could beat them, but they're going to have their hands full in a home game. Yeah. So getting past them is going to be hard. But Manasquan is definitely a contender there. And then CJ3, you have some interesting teams. You have Neptune as the favorite. And beating Moorestown, the number 1 seed, and beating the number 2 seed Nottingham is going to be difficult, but Neptune, I think, has shown you again they can play with high levels of competition. Yeah. You got some interest. You got like a Wall team that's 14 in that section, can probably win a couple games. Yeah. With Steve Geis, who's averaging 28 a game, he's scoring 30.
Well, he's on
an absolute tear.
Yeah.
And then we mentioned CJ1, and then going down to South Jersey 4, Toms River North made their run last year. It's a really, really good bracket that they're going to have to beat some good teams to get back there again this year. And then South Jersey 2, which is pretty much Camden's bracket, but the good thing for Barnegat and Point Borough in that bracket is they're on the opposite side. They won't have to play Camden or Haddonfield, who were probably the 2 main contenders, until the final. You have a Cinnaminson team that lost to a 3-win team a week or 2 ago. So that's the team that either of those 2 would have to go through, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see Barnegat playing Point Borough with a chance to go to the sectional final. And then you got CBA, who I think has a legitimate chance to win that section. I don't think St. Augustine is what they've been, and I think CBA is certainly better than they were last year. And I think there's a little bit of hope there that, hey, this could really be a jumping off point into next year when we might be able to contend for something in non-public A. So I think you'll get a good effort out of CBA as well.
It's interesting. The Shore Conference tournament form really holds up. There's a lot of chalk. The state tournament's a different thing because the seeds don't necessarily reflect how good teams really are.
Right, because you have this PowerPoint set up, and talk to one of the state guys about that non-public B North bracket where you have Pats as the 12 seed playing. The Patrick School's playing Montclair Immaculate in the first round. They're 2 of the most talented teams you'll find. They're playing in the first round of that tournament, and then like Hudson Catholic's going to have to go through like 6 top 10 teams to win the TOC this year. But yeah, you get that element. I just talked about Winslow, who's 7-17, wouldn't be in the state tournament in past years, but knowing that the formula is power points, and you just want to get there, they can schedule all the, they can schedule teams from all over the state. They can schedule some North Jersey powers and actually get themselves ready for this. Last year they won that section as an 8. They're an 11 this year, and away we go. Marlboro's the 8. I think if you were looking at Marlboro, their body of work leading up to the tournament, they would be a higher seed if you were just kind of saying, oh, this team beat this team, like we do with the Shore Conference tournament. So yeah, no, it's absolutely true that, and they seed them before a lot of these teams show what they're made of in their conference tournaments. So yeah, it's kind of throw the seeds out the window. I think most of them stay to form, and you'll see some, like I mentioned, Middletown North could make that run, but for the most part, the seeds are a little bit of a mixed bag.
Matt picks all the games throughout the state tournament on shoresportsnetwork.com. It's a yeoman's task, but he ventures to do it and even puts his record up there, which was very good in the Shore Conference tournament.
Yeah, after the first round, it was all right. But you always, I think it's like players, you kind of remember the ones you get wrong. You remember the losses. And I'm like, oh, I went with Rumson over Mater Dei, and Mater Dei beat him by 17. And, you look at that first round. First round, I got a few wrong, but I had a little bit of a wrong.
Give me your one dark horse that could win a sectional title and is not in the upper tier of the teams in their section.
I think there's a few. The one that sticks out to me that can win would probably be Middletown North. I just think that you have a player like Rob Higgins on the floor, and he's a game changer. They could go out they could be done by Wednesday, because they have to go to Chatham, and Chatham's been pretty good. Chatham beat Pope John, who I got a chance to see against Teaneck, and Pope John's talented. So if you can beat that team, you're tough. So they're going to have their hands full in the second round, but if they can get past that game, and if they can get past that game, away they go, because they're capable of beating any of the other teams. And I think Marlboro's got a pretty good chance too, but Hunterdon and Central would probably be waiting in that game, and that'll be tough.
Check out all Matt's picks again on shoresportsnetwork.com. Him and I will be back next week. Obviously, the field will be reduced. We'll be separating more of the pretenders from the contenders. We'll do that next week. But again, shoresportsnetwork.com. Matt covers boys basketball like nobody else. For Matt Manley, I'm Kevin Williams. Thanks for watching.